Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are the FAIRtax Guys. There we go. I still got to figure out how this thing works against my virtual background. If I put it over here, it disappears, you know. So
you're a magician. Hey, let's make the Internal Revenue Service disappear.
Oh, now there's a good idea. Okay.
You can use your Zoom background too.
All righty. Well, I'll tell you what.
Welcome into the program, everybody.
Indeed. We appreciate you getting along all right. I mean, have you been freezing again for the past couple of weeks?
Actually, you know, we're starting to get into that little magical period of time in the 1st of February where the groundhog sees his shadow or doesn't. And so we know that we're close to 6 weeks to spring. And actually, it hasn't been that bad of a winter. I mean, 2018 was 12 inches, and we had, you know, a couple 3 weeks ago we had some snow, and then we had a little bit of sleet, and then we had some more snow, and then we had some more sleet, and it sort of packed down. And for 2 weeks, no melting, no snow melting on the ground.
Come to Florida where we don't have any of that, and join us at CPAC February 24th through the 27th. We need as many FAIRtax people as we can to come down there, and we're going to be there. We'd love to meet you in person if you could make it. But
absolutely, it'll be a lot of fun.
Let's dive right in here and on FAIRtax Power Radio. And guess what? I've got some more craziness from congress.gov. Does that surprise you?
They just supply all this great fodder for discussion.
Yes, and again, we have always thought that the best argument we can make for getting rid of the tax code is to show people what's in it and what the Congress critters are trying to put in it. And I got a real winner today. You're going to have to dig this, but let's start with S3474. It's the Honoring Civil Servants Killed in the Line of Duty Act. To amend Title V United States Code to increase death gratuities and funeral allowances for federal employees and for other purposes. And you go on down a bit in the text and it says tax treatment of payments for the purposes of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 with respect to any death gratuity payment made to a surviving beneficiary under this section. That payment shall not be included in the gross income of that beneficiary. So once again, the tax code is deciding for you what is income and what isn't. And of course, nobody's going to argue with making that kind of thing, you know, non-taxable.
Obviously not. But the whole point would be, you know, let's make everything even Steven.
Yeah, if you make one worthy cause, you know, non-taxable, then what about this one? 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 And before long, the tax base is eroded, and the rest of us are having to make up the difference.
Well, and that's true. And there's a ton of money coming into the federal coffers now as the discussion is going. Yet at the same time, we're running these huge deficits, and you know, so we're not, as the FAIRtax, we're not talking about how to spend the money. We're talking about how to get the money,
how to raise it. You know, you still have the debate on how much to spend on what. So the FAIRtax is truly nonpartisan. It does not advance or hinder either party's spending priorities. It just raises the money and still lets them continue to fight over it like they've always been doing.
That's right. And it's all, I mean, but they always spend more than they have. It just is amazing when you have a printing press that will print dollar bills. It just is unbelievable. Well, today we've got, go ahead. I know you got a few more to do.
I was just saying, if we replace the income tax system with its $1 trillion a year evasion problem, excuse me again, with the FAIRtax.
And that's the,
I should have got some water. Should have got some water between sessions here. I just got this little tickle in my throat that won't go away. But I'm going to do something different. Do something different here on congress.gov segment that I've never done before in all of the 301 episodes that preceded this one. I'm going to go into HR 6384, Improving Awareness of Health Coverage Options Act of 2022. Now, most of the time we look at these things in the order that they're introduced, and it takes a while for the text of these things to be published on congress.gov. But I found some text in this one, and I'm going to read through a good bit of it. You know, this just show you exactly what the Congress critters are trying to put in. This is, again, the Improving Awareness of Health Coverage Options Act, H.R. 6384. Section 2, Internal Revenue Code of 1986. In general, Section 4980B, that's Section 4980 BF6 of the Internal Revenue Code is amended, A, in subparagraph D, in clause 2 by striking under subparagraph C and inserting under clause 3, and then by redesignating clauses 1 and 2 as subclauses 1 and 2 respectively, and moving the margin of each such subclause, so redesignated, to M's, EMS. I have no idea what kind of measure an M is, but they want to move these clauses 2 M's to the right in the document there. And again, I'm not done yet. By redesigning subparagraphs A through D as clauses 1 through 4 respectively, and moving the margin of each such clause as so redesignated 2 M's to the right, by striking in accordance and inserting the following. General, in accordance, by inserting after of such beneficiaries right under this subsection, the following. In accordance with the notification requirements under subparagraph C, and the E, by striking the requirements of subparagraph B and all that follows through, such notification is made, and inserting the following. Paragraph B, alternative means of compliance with requirements for notification of multi-employer plans by employers. The requirements of subparagraph A2 shall be considered satisfied in the case of a multi-employer plan in connection with a qualifying event described in paragraph 3B, if the plan provides that the determination of the occurrence of such qualifying event will be made, excuse me, again, by the plan administrator. That is a proposal to go into the tax code. Your turn.
They go to school to be able to write that stuff. There's a class somewhere up near one of those universities up there. They teach you how to write that. We're going to find out what 2 M's to the right means. I think it's a dance step, if I remember correctly. But boy, oh boy, I mean, I was just getting ready to call somebody in Congress and say, what the heck are you all doing? What is this? We have so many questions. We have so many questions for our elected officials when it comes down to this. I know a couple of people that I'm going to ask this question to.
That is the reason we have 75,000 pages of tax code that nobody can understand.
Well, it's as much of describing what it is as telling you where to put the letters on the paper. It sounds to me 2 M's to the right sounds like a something to do with a typewriter. Something.
Yeah, and I'm not making that up. That is actually in there. You can go to congress.gov, look up HR 6384, go into the text and find every bit. And that was just a small portion. It goes on and on and on and on. I mean, it'd take more time than we've got here in order to go through all of it. But that's what they're putting in the tax code.
It's insane. And one of the things that we do here on the program every week is we underscore some of the ridiculous issues that come up, not the least of which is 2 M's to the right. I mean, really? This becomes part of you're now using the tax code entry form that you have on your computer at your representative desk. You're now using the online submission form to tell people how to make your document be in the right format, 2 M's to the right.
I'll tell you what, I mean, that is in the tax code that they want to move that. So speaking of calling people and asking them about the tax code, did you get through to Debbie Stabenow yet?
I did, and you don't want to know the answer.
Oh, yes, I do.
We're going to save it for another episode. I'm going to try to get her on the phone. I said, I really would like to talk to the representative about this because I really want to record her for a radio show that I do. And, and so anyway, we will save that one for it because I'm working on that.
But you did get through to her and I at least got through to a staff.
Somebody in there in the front office there. So,
okay. Well,
I'm sure there'll be some planning for my next call. I'm sure they'll be ready for me.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay, let's move on to an article that you found a little while that I thought was pretty cool. And actually, this is something that Ron Malero would talk about all the time, how the IRS will not go after well-heeled people who can afford to hire the best tax professionals, they go after folks who can't fight back.
Well, then that's part of it. But there's so many people that are out there, especially during the pandemic, that are taking whatever job they can find. In some cases, a contract job, for example, or gig work, gig work. And a lot of folks in the radio and TV business, production business especially, are that type of worker where they go from a project to a project and they make, in some cases, several $1,000s on a project. And then they may be off for like 6 weeks, or they may be off for 2 weeks, or they may be off for 2 days, or they may find a TV show or something that they're working on. Depending on what their responsibilities are, there could be feast or famine as far as cash flow is concerned, or they may make something in a period of time that's only a few $100s. And this is something that we've talked about very briefly before, but the IRS kind of takes aim at the little guy, and this reminded me a lot of Ron. That the Internal Revenue Service announced at the beginning of the year. So we're already a month in to this little project. The Internal Revenue Service is cracking down on small transactions, just over $600. It used to be that the threshold was much higher, 200 transactions and $20,000. So it didn't affect nearly as many people. And folks like Venmo and Etsy and Airbnb and others, you have a site that you go to and you're doing some type, whatever the transaction is with them, and you put in your credit card number, your bank account, and they withdraw a certain amount. Well, now Venmo and Airbnb and so on have to report transactions of more than $600. And Venmo is an interesting, it's like Cash App or one of the other send me money at or
I've
Zelle.
heard of it. I don't know a great deal about it. You'll have to educate me on that one.
You type in a person's name, and it's kind of like a social bank account where you attach your bank account on one side, and then the person on the other side attaches their bank account, and you can send money back and forth. And it typically happens between family or friends, or, my son, for example, needs $1,000 to do something, and I'll put that money through Venmo as an example, totally as an example. And so he gets the money and he has it attached through, but it's a transactional conduit to between our bank accounts primarily.
Okay.
PayPal does the same thing. And so they're all out there now, and they all now have to report to the Internal Revenue Service $600.
Okay, real quickly, where is this article published at? Where did you find it so people can read the whole thing if they want to follow along with us?
Yeah, this is through a company, a website called AmericanBriefing.com. And it just so happened to include, this particular story. There's other articles that may be of interest to people there as well. Well, we just talked about two different types of transactions. One would be a business transaction, somebody like a gig worker who uses one of the services to receive money or send money from a business standpoint. But the IRS will not take the $600 report from Venmo or Airbnb or whatever if it's just a transaction between father and son.
So yeah, if you're loaning your son some money and using Venmo to get it to him, that would not count against the $600. But if you buy a steam locomotive on eBay, that would.
Yeah, right. You have to build the tracks to get it to your house.
Yeah, I've never seen a steam locomotive offered on eBay, but if I did, I'd be tempted to buy it. That's for sure.
No kidding. Well, the article continues. It's a very short article. It talks, that sets up the situation, and then there's a section on here with a response from a young lady named Sandra O'Neill, who is a tax attorney and a partner in a firm at a tax accounting office. It's much harder to go after billionaires, which is what you just said. It's much harder to go after Amazon. If you have someone who makes a mistake, a small business, it's easier to go after the small business because typically there's one person or two or maybe three or half a dozen and they don't have the wherewithal or the time, you know. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to bite the bullet, and they're going to, go that $600 way as opposed
people
to
who have
$20,000.
the means to do it are going to hire somebody to take care of this for them and not worry about it. But
Right.
that's not a luxury that you or I have if
Right.
if the IRS decides to come after us.
It's like the NAT. I mean, the big companies looking at the Internal Revenue Service as just something else that they have to pay to deal with in their business transactions. And us little guys, we try to get, to a point where we're moving through, and we have to be really careful that we won't step in a big pile of Internal Revenue Service.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
I caught myself. I remember This is a family show.
You did. But it's interesting. You mentioned something about the differentiating between, private transactions between individuals and payment for goods and services. Now, I know that on PayPal, you can designate what kind of payment this is. Now, just what is to stop people, if I buy a steam locomotive on eBay, from registering that as, oh, I'm sending this to a friend of mine? Again, the Internal Revenue Code is not enforceable. No more than expecting criminals to report the fair market value of property they steal during a taxable year.
Well, here's something interesting.
It's a crazy system.
Well, it is. And again, folks, we spend a lot of time on this show, laughing about the Internal Revenue Service and the tax code, the income tax code. And that's what the fair tax is all about, is replacing the income tax with a tax on consumption. And the IRS is in crisis. I'll read one more section out of this particular article, and then we'll move on. The IRS is in crisis. This is a response to the article from Aaron Collins, who is a national taxpayer advocate. The IRS is preparing to begin the 2022 filing season. It is poised to carry over millions of unprocessed returns and millions of pieces of taxpayer correspondence. Do you remember last week we talked about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and you have the right to be, informed and everything be timely and all? Again, the IRS is preparing to begin the 2022 filing season. It is poised to carry over millions of unprocessed returns and millions of pieces of taxpayer correspondence, resulting in even longer delays for taxpayers who have been patiently waiting for far too long.
That sounds like starting the Daytona 500 50 laps down.
Yeah, or in reverse. And so your rights as a taxpayer, like we talked about from publication 17 last week, it's moot because they're not even able to live up to some of those rights that we talked about the last program that we had. Go back to the last episode and review that, just in case you're interested in finding out about that.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is this next article under this same little place that you sent me. Can the IRS get my bank account and financial information? The short answer is, yeah, they sure can.
Without a doubt. And the article says the Internal Revenue.
But you have a right to privacy. Remember, you have a right to privacy and confidentiality.
I'm pulling back publication 17 for a second here.
Yeah,
right to privacy. I think it's in here somewhere. Let's see. Right to confidentiality, right to privacy. Number 7, Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Taxpayers have the right to expect that the Internal Revenue Service inquiry, examination, or enforcement action will comply with the law and be no more intrusive than necessary. I'm sorry, we're only going to give you this exam one time. So as the doctor would say, turn your head and cough.
Yes. But if they want your bank account, they can go get it.
Right. The IRS probably already knows about many of your financial accounts, and the Internal Revenue Service can get information on how much is there. But in reality, the IRS rarely digs deeper into your bank and financial accounts unless you're being audited or the Internal Revenue Service is collecting back taxes from you. This is an article that was produced for H&R Block to give them credit for this particular information that we're reviewing right now. The IRS already has loads of information on taxpayers. Comes from 3 sources: your filed returns, information statements about you, forms W-2, 1099, under your Social Security number, and data from third parties like the Social Security Administration, how much was deducted from your paycheck Because when Social Security gets held from your paycheck, the employer is to return information to the Social Security Administration that gives them the details of what was withheld for that particular organization.
Yeah, well, this reminds me of something Steve Hayes wrote about in the chairman's report a good little while back now, a proposal to, for the IRS to get new supercomputers. And one of the things that they wanted to do was, hey, we will save people the trouble of having to fill out their own tax returns. The IRS will fill out your tax return for you and send it to you for you to sign. How does that work? And they say, well, somebody said, how can they do that? Well, they already know enough about you to fill out your tax return for you.
Right.
That should be scary.
For complicated returns, though, I mean, you have to have somebody that knows this stuff. And this is just a few pages of publication 17, which we talked about last week, which goes through step by step every single thing in order of how to fill those forms out and where to insert, form 62R or whatever it is that brings in a particular amount of money, and the information statements, the information that the Internal Revenue Service has on you, they know some things already, and then they have to ask you for other things. If you were producing a loan for, like for instance, if you went to the SBA for small business loan, a lot of folks did that here in the last couple of years during the pandemic. A lot of businesses went to the SBA, and they spit out a lot of money over the last couple of 3 years for this exact reason. But you had to give the SBA a letter that said they can go to the Internal Revenue Service and get your tax transcripts so that they could have their forms and their file folder filled out on you correctly as they went through their process. So there's a lot of sharing of information amongst the agencies, but there are things that they don't know. And my next comment is, why should they know anything about what your income is?
Absolutely. Why does the government have all this information on you? It is the most sensitive, most confidential, private data that any individual would have, possibly next to their medical records.
Right.
But good heavens, to have all that information that the government has on you, and I guarantee you, if it's in a computer somewhere, it can be hacked.
Absolutely, and that brings, you have people clocking in over in China and in Russia that are doing nothing but computer denials of service, which means they're trying to hack into and disrupt computer networks. And we've heard stories, and that might be a topic for another show, is how secure is your data in any particular government computer network.
Hey, we might toss that to Jade. Let him do a Wally's World on that one.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That would be great. Well, the Internal Revenue Service has other things. They have, like, the 1099 form is there's all kinds of extensions to the 1099 form, like the 1099-INT form. If you receive more than $10 of interest in a bank account during the year, the bank has to report that interest to the Internal Revenue Service on form 1099-INT interest. The bank, I mean, can you imagine? There's probably 2 or 3 departments at a bank that has to keep up with all this. If the Internal Revenue Service goes away, the banks lose that responsibility. They're absolved of that responsibility to send that information anywhere. You get that. You don't have to worry about that. They save money. That they have a way to save money. It invigorates their bottom line because they don't have to have the expense of sending the Internal Revenue Service information about the $10 that you earned in interest. If you have an investment account, the IRS can see them in dividend and stock sales reporting through the form 1099 dividend and 1099-B form. If you have an IRA, the IRS will know about it through form 5498. It goes on and on. If you get paid through a merchant account like PayPal or Visa and have enough transactions, the Internal Revenue Service will see the amount of these transactions on Form 1099-K.
It's insane. We need to get rid of the whole system so the government no longer has access to all of this personal private information on every last one of us. Really, they do. And we need to just get rid of that, get rid of tax returns in their entirety, and go with the FAIRtax. We've got a little under 3 minutes, and we haven't talked about the FAIRtax marketplace in a while. You need to do that.
Yeah.
Did you get your Moravian bakery out there yet?
They are going to look into it.
Excellent. Good, because if they do, I will buy some more sugar cake and spice cookies from them.
That's exactly where you can buy it from. And folks, the marketplace, the FAIRtax marketplace, is a unique opportunity for not only small business owners, folks that are like on Etsy or some other organization or even eBay for that matter. Similar type structure. You will have an opportunity to go on there as a business and put in your service or your whatever it is that you're selling. And a little bit of the money that is in your transaction comes to Americans for Fair Taxation, and you get the benefit of reaching almost 400,000, give or take, members of the FAIRtax. And these are folks that are passionate about this particular method of transaction. Obviously, some states still require sales tax to be brought into the transaction, but you can shop online, support the FAIRtax, free enterprise and small businesses all at the same time. You can go on there right now and actually sign up. And even though there's not a lot in there yet, with its building, there's opportunity. The particular information that's on here, and like Bob was talking about, our friends with the Moravian Bakery, to go on there. And as it grows, you'll be able to support those few businesses, and as they grow, hundreds of businesses or more, and let people in your area know, do this today or tomorrow. The next time you get an opportunity, go into a business that might benefit from having an online presence like this.
Yeah, and the flip side of that is, if you're a consumer, if you're a customer, you can go out to the marketplace and make a suggestion as to what types of products and services you'd like to see. Then the marketplace team takes those suggestions to vendors that can fulfill those requests and say, look, we've got people out here ready to do business with you. As soon as you can show up on our marketplace, we've got a customer for you. So that works both ways. So give them suggestions of what you'd like to see. And also, if you can, sign up. Doesn't cost a thing for a business to sign up. You only pay the commission when you make a sale through the marketplace. The FAIRtax, or not it's FAIRtaxmarketplace.com. Check it out if you would. And that's going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Thank you again so much for watching and listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
The FAIRtax Guys, reminding you again, the FAIRtax is the only truly fair tax. And once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So tell me, how could I pay less taxes?
Less?
Yeah, I'm trying to get ahead, so how can I pay less?
Well, I suppose you could pay less taxes by earning less money, or you could give to charity.
How is that going to help?
Actually, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but if you know the right people, okay, or if you have a really good lawyer, you can usually get around the big ones.
If I may, under the FAIRtax, to pay less taxes, you would simply consume less. You would control how much you pay and when you pay your taxes simply by choosing what you purchase and when you purchase something.
So I could stay focused and get ahead.
Exactly.